Yeah, these are my two Texas rig flipping setups. This is the big boy. This is what I flip. Ounce plus weights on. It's a 7.9 heavy. It's still a bit moderate though. I kind of like that when you're in heavy cover. I don't want a real fast rod. And I got a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel, oversized handle. It's a Tatula flip and pitch. Running 40 or 50 pound Suffix 131, kind of depending on how big a weight I'm throwing. If I'm ounce and a quarter, I'm probably throwing 40. If I'm ounce and a half plus, I'm probably throwing 50. Palomar's not straight shank VMC. This happens to be a 5/0 flip, but anywhere between 3/0 and 5/0. That's my punching setup. Now if I'm just what I call flipping, which is really pitching, this is what I'm doing the majority of my work with. This is a 7' 3" medium heavy, so a little bit shorter, a little bit softer. 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. I go to the 7 for punching. Just when they get you in those mats, I feel like I got more power in the reel handle. Oversized handle helps with that as well. So I just feel like I got more torque trying to pull them out of really thick stuff. And this is, you know, my lighter pitching setup. This is going to be 3/4 ounce weight and less. 30 pound 131 Suffix braid, 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. Shorter, softer rod. Braid to a leader. I'm usually flipping 20-pound leader. And like I said, this is going to be 3/16 to 3/4 ounce weight. 4/0 EWG, heavy duty VMC ringed wide gap. That's my preferred hook. I only go to a straight shank when I'm punching. All my light pitching, I prefer an EWG. I just think the landing percentage is the best for the way I fish. Like I said, this is a shorter, softer rod than most people would flip with, but that helps a lot with fatigue, and I think this is the proper setup for me to land all my bites. I'm not doing anything crazy. Like I said, it's gonna be 3/4 ounce weight unless this is my docks, lay downs, submerged grass, you know, just going down seawalls. Any of your light flipping, this is what I'm doing it with. Faster reel, shorter, lighter rod, braid to a leader, lighter weight, wide gap hook, ringed hook, and this is my heavy duty punch. Longer, heavier rod, lower gear ratio, bigger lines, straight braid, straight shank, oversized handle. That's my punching rod. If I literally got to put my bait through something, and like I said, ounce plus, I'll you know, light punching even with this, with 3/4 and 5/8, that does it for me. But if I get into the scenario where I need an ounce to a 2-ounce weight, this is what setup I go for. Super heavy vegetation. The only thing different, I got the drag lock down on this one, and I let this one slip just a little bit. Just seems like when you flip braid to a leader, if you got a lockdown drag, you'll break your bait knot with a lockdown drag, just because it's all no stretch to a little piece of stretch, and I just don't think it can handle it. So let that drag slip just a little tiny bit. This one I got it locked down on, and those are my two Texas rig setups. I mean, baits, whatever you like to flip. I flip a tube a lot, beaver style baits and turbo craws, like a craw style bait. And then when I punch, it's pretty much always a beaver style bait, streamline bait. Today we're punching the palmetto bug, something that doesn't have a lot of appendages, nothing to grab. Anything on, real streamline, goes through the thick grass. And then usually when I'm just light pitching, it's a bulkier bait, you know. Turbo craws, something with a little kick, or a tube. I flip a tube a lot. And when I'm choosing hooks for flipping, I flip a straight shank in really heavy cover, big weight. I feel like my landing percentage is better with that over the extra wide gap. And when I'm fishing sparser cover with a lighter weight, I feel like my landing percentage is better with an extra wide gap. I don't know the science behind it or reason to it, but that's kind of what works for me. I'm not a straight shank all the time kind of guy, and I'm not an extra wide gap all the time. I think there's a time and a place for each. Good one out of that tree. Don't do it. All right. Just barely skinned them. But nice chunky bass, shallow, heavy cover, punching. Another thing I will say, this braided line being It doesn't matter on my lighter Texas rig rod, just because my leader's typically rubbing against whatever I may be flipping, but the Suffix 131 is definitely the quietest braid, which I think when you get in matted vegetation where you're having to yo-yo your bait a ton to get a bite, you know, you get a cold front or something, you might have to pump your bait 4, 5, 6 times to get a bite. I think having that real quiet braid makes a big difference when you're seesawing on the grass or whatever it is you're punching. Whereas with my lighter rig, I got a long enough leader that my braid's rarely touching. I use the same braid, it's still 131, a little bit lighter. 30-pound setup instead of a 40 or 50-pound setup, but I don't think it matters as much on that because of the leader. I feel like anywhere they'll bite a 1 ounce weight, my line's not gonna matter. It should be in heavy enough cover that they're not getting a good look at my line. My bait's falling really fast. I don't think they can see that well, and that's why I go just straight braid. Plus, I don't think you could, it'd be hard to handle them in here with a leader knowing you gotta, you know, let your drag slip a little bit and so you don't break off. And I just don't want to give them an inch in here in this heavy cover. The 131's a super limp braid, which is fine when I'm flipping because it's all tight line in and out. I'm not making long casts, which this line is good for as well, but I prefer a stiffer braid on my spinning rods because a lot of the, you know, there's a lot of slack involved when you're spinning rod fishing. You know, you're shaking your bait on slack, making long casts, you know, fishing in the wind, and a lot of things that can cause you a lot of issues. You're getting a ton of line twist. And I think I prefer a more rigid braid for spinning reel fishing. And that's why I got 832 on my spinning reels and 131 on my flipping sticks, just because I'm not really dealing with a lot of slack line and getting all twisted up like it does on a spinning rod. I can get by with a limper line, makes for real smoother flips. And little guy. Fat though, fat. Oh, look at that. Quinn must have been here. He's got a chunk coming out of his mouth.
Cheeto? Oh, little chunk.
Yeah. I don't know if it's attached to a jig. It's actually a beaver. I don't know if it's, nope, just loose. They eat a beaver twice in a row. I don't know how he got so fat. You want to try flipping that? Yeah. That's a good bite on the way down. Right in that little mat in that tree. Fat fish. He's got a bluegill tail. At least he's eating real baits. Yeah, not big, but he's getting there. Yeah, and this is how I fished the majority of the season on the Elite Series. Just burning bank, fishing the best looking stuff to me. Not spending a lot of time beating on cover, just kind of running through there, flipping stick in my hand, trolling motor cranked up, make a flip, one flip at whatever I thought looked good, and kept rolling. That's kind of, I mean, really power fished a lot this year. Kind of the mindset that if I, you know, fished enough good, obvious cover fast enough, or I'd cover enough of it, I was going to run into 5 dumb ones versus trying to, you know, finesse fish or really slow down and try to pick stuff apart. I just felt like if I could, sooner or later I would run into one that just didn't care. Just a biter, you know what I mean? And this is how I like to fish too. I don't know, people think of me as a smallmouth fisherman, but I just like flipping shallow cover and grass, and I guess this is what I would do if I was just fishing for fun. And you know, each day you go out, you make a little mini pattern in your head, and that might change through the course of the day, and definitely day to day, but you know, you get a bite or two doing one thing, and you can kind of develop a little pattern on the fly and run it till the day's over and start doing it the next day, and just kind of be a little more open-minded each day and take what it gives you and run with it. But never really did I beat a dead horse or try to force anything. I kind of just stayed open-minded and fished real free. This should be a bite here. Not a big one though. Right where you're supposed to be. Wood plus mat. I slack lined them too. Shouldn't have done that, but we got them. Sometimes I just can't help it. Just black out when I feel it like jump on the way down. I just swing. Yeah, we're transitioning to a little sparser cover. The super heavy stuff's come to an end. So I'm gonna switch rods, pick up my lighter Texas rig rod, and you know, use the right tool for the job. Here's a bite. Big one too, great big one. Get up here. Nice fish. Switched up, went to the light Texas rig, or I shouldn't say light, I'm still flipping a 3/4, but my light flip setup. Got a nice chunky largemouth bass. Flipping a tube here, I got 3/4 ounce tungsten, braid to the leader with the 4-rod heavy duty wide gap. It's a landing percentage thing. I don't know exactly what that little ring does. I know when you're pegging a weight, mine's always gonna fall straight no matter what. It's not such a big deal when you're flipping, but if you do skip around stuff, sometimes if you're just tied to the hook, your knot will get off to the side and it'll fall weird. And there's nothing I can do that won't keep that perfectly streamlined. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but definitely for landing percentage, it's the hook I have the most confidence in. Seems to hook them really deep too. That's what I don't like about straight shank hooks. It seems like they're always hooked in the lip, which isn't a bad spot to hook one, but from where that bait is when you set the hook to where it ends up on a straight shank, 4-rod heavy duty wide gaps, just, I don't know, it seems like when I get a bite, they're hooked way back in there. I don't think they're eating that bait any deeper than they do on the straight shank, and the straight shank always kind of seems to pin them in the lip. And like I said, heavy cover, it's a necessary evil, but if I don't need a straight shank hook, I'm gonna use this extra wide gap every time. God dang it. Oh, he didn't get it. Thought he had me over there. Yeah, he did. Wrestle him out of there. That one isn't the snout, but I just tend to notice, you know, I'm usually hooking my fish back in here with an EWG in that zone. It seems like I kind of get them more in here with a straight shank. So it seems like my landing percentage goes up when I hook them further back in there. Right when I got into flipping is when tube flipping got big, so I kind of been doing it for a long time, and it seemed like, you know, in the beaver style baits, and there's some issues with tubes, there's tricks to them to rig them right where you won't have issues with them. A lot of guys didn't like them because they balled up on their hook, but they just didn't rig them right. And it seemed like everybody got into beavers and D-bombs and brush hogs and all that stuff and really got away from a tube. And it's really one of the best flipping baits out there. Some guys didn't like them just because of hooking percentage, but not so much on this tube, but a double dip tube. There's certain ways you got to rig it to fix that stuff. They don't last as long when you do it that way, but not really important if you're catching the fish that bite. But it wouldn't matter, even if I flipped a beaver or a straight tail worm or something real thin, I would still use this hook. I just feel like when one bites it, he's in the boat.